Test. Okay. We get everybody take their seats. Can move forward. Marion, which commissioners do we have online?
Malcolm and Ben.
Okay, great. Welcome to everybody online. Let's call the meeting to order at 4:01 p.m. Okay, going to go to item 2, which is approval of minutes. Once again, Marion, thank you for the great minutes. Does anybody have any revisions or amendments to the minutes as published? Two. No? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Thanks.
I will move to approve the minutes.
All right, get a second.
Robert Dilday, second.
All right, so the minutes are, oh, excuse me. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. Ben, aye.
Thanks, guys. So unanimously approved. And again, thank you, Marion. Let's move to section 3, which is public participation. So public participation allows the public to make any comments about any items that are not on the agenda. And we welcome those comments. The commission cannot act on any comments. We may make comments back or include that in a future agenda, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes. So I think hang on for a second. Shannon, do we have anybody public comment? Non-agenda items. But what we would like to do is introduce Mr. Shannon Jones, our new services director. Welcome to Flagstaff. We're so happy you're here. You're going to be busy. If you want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about yourself and first few days and anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Okay, my name is Shannon Jones. I am the Flagstaff's Water Services Division Director. We're completing week 2 now. It's been an exciting 2 weeks. Amazing city, amazing staff. So I've really been enjoying it. I come to Flagstaff from the city of Santa Fe, where I served for 24 years in their public utilities department. 7 of the last of those years was as their utility director. I oversaw water, wastewater, environmental services, which is trash and recycling, and utility billing. We also housed the Office of Sustainability and dealt with Keep Santa Fe Beautiful, a branch of a private volunteer group, nonprofit. And so we oversaw that as a liaison. And with that being said, again, I do feel like I'm a Flagstaff with extensive experience and technically looking at utility operations, specifically in those fields, water, wastewater, and even into stormwater, as far as treatment, best business practices, policies, dealing with the public, financial. So as the chair alluded to, very busy. It's a very dynamic business to be in. And again, we touch the lives of every citizen and every visitor every day. So again, I never devalue the work that the staff does and how they make that work. I look forward to getting up to speed, working with this team again. I've been very impressed with the level of professionalism and expertise that they bring. So definitely excited about that. And so I'll probably conclude there about talking about myself, but I'm obviously available for any questions that the commission may have for me.
I just want to welcome you personally. Glad you're here.
I'm John Nauman, and I will second that.
Minutes. Can you turn on the mic?
There you go. Can you hear me now? Yes. Thanks, very good. My name is Josh Clevenger. I am the Director of Agronomy at Pine Canyon. I want to introduce Doug Sutter, our General Manager at Pine Canyon, and Andrew Miller, who is our Controller at Pine Canyon. In the viewing audience as well is Heather Cogswell, our HOA Manager, and I want to thank them for joining in support. So we want to talk a little bit about our responsible use of water at Pine Canyon. As the chairman said, we are a large user and customer of the city with respect to reclaimed water. And, you know, it is something that's very important to us. It's important to our ownership. It's important to our membership that we are responsible with our use of water and that we're providing the best possible experience, not just on the golf course, but around the entire club. With that, so, you know, being that our existence is in the Southwest, really the Western United States is in what I would say is a perpetual drought situation. You know, we've had a great couple of monsoon seasons here. We've had an above average snowfall year, and I promise you at some point later this summer, we'll be talking about drought. It's because the entire part of the country is starved for water, whether it be reclaimed fresh water or groundwater. So it's really important that we judiciously manage the resource. Golf courses use water for turf and landscape on a supplemental basis. When we're not getting rain, when we're not having runoff from snow, we're using water to supplement what Mother Nature provides to create healthy turf and healthy landscape, an environment to keep those things healthy. And the responsible use of the reclaimed water that we have is really at the forefront of our minds in everything we do. The club, with the support of our owners and our members, is getting ready to take on a large infrastructure upgrade with respect to our water delivery system. The one explicit goal is being the long-term sustainability of the golf course, our most important feature. And as such, a significant amount of time and effort has gone to planning and preparation for this project that'll start later this year. Day to day is really the nuts and bolts for myself. Again, I oversee the golf course maintenance department, the agronomy department, all of the club landscape and infrastructure. And when it comes to the growing season, which we're going to be here pretty soon, typically late March through November is our growing season, every day our focus is water. It's the first thing we talk about in the morning. It's the last thing we talk about at the end of the day when we're setting up water for that night. And it's something that we don't talk about anything more throughout the day than what we're doing with respect to irrigating the golf course. The decision that we make every day, every evening, to how much water is applied that night is based on many factors. We've got some really neat tools to help us monitor how much water we use and to help us make these decisions. On site, we have our own weather station that provides an evapotranspiration rate. That weather station communicates directly with our irrigation computer. And that helps us determine a figure for how many minutes, how many gallons are going to go out that specific night. In the field, on a daily basis, 2 to 3 of our key employees are taking moisture meter readings on 5 acres of our most highly maintained turf, compiling that data and putting them into spreadsheets and helping us be as precise as we can on those areas. Every day, but myself, my assistants, our irrigation techs, you know, we are scouting for wet areas and dry areas, for leaks. And it's not uncommon for us to make up to 100 individual sprinkler runtime adjustments on a daily basis, just to really fine tune how much water is going out on the golf course. Our water use is measured at our pump station. via mechanical flow meter and a digital data collector. We record those totals daily and we make sure that those numbers are in line with the amount of reclaimed water coming in from the city, right? And we know there's some discrepancy, but they're very close and it's something we monitor daily and we keep records of. And, you know, with respect to the water that we're applying, we're doing what's called deficit irrigation. We're replacing 75 to 80% of ET nightly. That's kind of our sweet spot. We're not, you know, and our goal is not to overwater the golf course. Our goal is a firm and fast golf course. And the individual site-specific irrigation allows us to really dial that in. We have individual head control of over 2,300 sprinkler heads across 82 acres of turf. Sometimes we push it too far. Myself, I'm a golfer. I love the game. The membership we have has very high expectations. We don't like playing golf in wet conditions. Part of the season, you know, monsoons, we don't have a whole lot of control of that. But when we do, we're going to ride the line of being on the dry side. And this picture kind of gives you an idea of, you know, when we're riding that line, it's a really fine line between being too wet and too dry. But that's okay. That's a line we're okay with. I think our agronomic philosophy really ties into our use of water. Adopting priorities in order of plant health, playability with aesthetics third is really something I've learned over 20 years in this business. Getting that water to the roots. You know, and some of the agronomic things we're doing is interseeding of new turf varieties. We're always trying to increase the population of newer, more drought tolerant turf varieties that are less disease prone, more tolerant to traffic. And long term, we'll see, as a result, reduced water use. And again, dedication to firm and fast surfaces. With this new irrigation system, we're going to be out hand watering. Hand watering is a big part of what we do. Again, something my owners and members probably don't want to hear. You know, one of the questions I get most is, will we see as many guys out there with hoses this summer or after we have the new system? And the answer is, yeah, you probably will, because we're going to ride that line. The best irrigation system is roughly 80% efficient in terms of distribution uniformity. And so we're going to make up some of those little areas. Instead of overwatering, we're going to underwater, and we're going to hit some of these areas with hoses and little micro sprinkler sets, making us that more efficient. Old superintendent once told me, if you're not hand watering, you're overwatering. And he was right. Along with that, routine cultural practices like aeration, verticutting, top dressing are all methods of maintaining a surface and managing a surface so that water is getting into the ground as efficiently as possible and being made available for roots and grass plants to take up. One of my favorite pictures, that's the second hole at Pine Canyon. One of our team members out on the golf course aerifying the fairway. We have very high expectations. You know, we get the golf course up and running in April at some point, and we're you know hard at it until sometime in October. That being said, we're dedicated to these practices. you know, we're poking holes and somewhat disturbing the golfers and our membership and our guests because these are that important. We'll aerate these fairways, roughly 40 acres of turf, our fine turf areas, every 4 to 6 weeks throughout the season. Again, to make sure water's getting into the soil. I've lived in Flagstaff for 2 years. This will be going on my 3rd season. I remember coming here in March of 2021 and walking the dogs out east of town in a field. And it was right after it snowed, and you know, it was wet and kind of muddy. Go out the next day, and it's actually not bad. You go out the next day, and it's dry as a bone. And these soils are so prone to becoming hydrophobic that the more of this type of thing we do, the more we use organic fertilizers and these soil amendments, and the more we open the soil, the better we're going to be using our water, the more efficient we'll be with our water. You know, that brings me to our long-term commitments and the fact that the ownership again and the membership is committed to installing a new irrigation system and beginning some course renovations later this year. Really at the in late summer, we'll begin replacing the entire irrigation system that's 20 years old and doing some minor renovations at a cost of just over $5 million. You know, there's so many things that I'm thrilled with about this project. It's gonna make our jobs not easier, but better and more efficient. We're gonna be able to provide a better product for our membership and our guests. But we're reducing, in a lot of ways, we're reducing our footprint in that, you know, the total number of sprinkler heads is going from 2,300 to around 1,800. Because we're being more efficient and the newer technology, the newer state-of-the-art sprinklers that are going in the ground are that much more efficient. Along with the irrigation, we're reducing 10 acres of turf. We're taking out 10 acres of turf. We'll be installing some native grasses and some native landscape that will, once established, require no water. One of the commitments I'm very proud of that the club has supported me in and our department is installing a new equipment wash station at our maintenance facility. This system it's a fully self-contained, you know, basically a water treatment system that captures all the rinse water, clippings, particles, sand, debris, separates those, and brings the liquid into a water treatment facility that through microbial degradation breaks down pesticides and solvents and oils and whatever else is on those grass clippings and in that dirt that's picked up through the course of maintaining the golf course. In just 3 months, we've saved over 15,000 gallons because that water is treated and returned back to wash the equipment. Really cool stuff. You know, I'm again proud or thankful that our ownership has been supportive of that. And, you know, and in long-term stuff, something that is just new and we're working on is some very new soil sensor technology that we hope to implement in the next year. That is soil sensing equipment that is mounted on the back of our mowers. And these mowers that mow 32 acres of our turf 3 or 4 days a week will be able to monitor soil moisture to a depth of 4 inches at every square foot over 32 acres. Via GPS satellite and microwave radiometry. I'm still learning how to pronounce that one. But as we mow the golf course, we'll be measuring every square foot, you know, and basically creating a thermal image of 32 acres of fairway that we'll be able to overlay our irrigation map on, and we'll be able to very site-specifically adjust our irrigation to fine tune it even more. We anticipate up to a 25% reduction. You know, when you account for the water, the electrical, and the manpower that it takes to really put time and effort into doing what we do now, as opposed to you know, putting this new technology into place. So that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. And lastly, really, over the next few years, we'll adopt and implement the best management practices that our golf associations have put together over the last few years. A lot of these practices are in place, but we'll officially adopt them and really put together our own set of best management practices. And we will work on becoming certified with the Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary as a sanctuary golf course. Part of that certification process is going through a pretty stringent documentation process of our water use and reduction plan. So lots of stuff going on long-term at Pine Canyon. Lots of stuff going on short-term at Pine Canyon. Wanted to just give everybody an idea. There's a lot going on here of our irrigation system, old and new. The color map is the first hole, the 18th hole, the 19th hole in our practice area. That's our current irrigation system. Black and white is the new. And I think this shows kind of a good picture for what, in my mind, less is more. Each little black dot is a sprinkler head on both maps. And if you're able to kind of zero in between the practice area and 18, right below the big red blob, there's probably 60 sprinkler heads on what we call the 19th tee. And the new system, there's less than 20. You go through the piping schematic, and there's less pipe in the ground. With a looping system, we'll go from 40 valves and laterals per hole to 5 or 6 loops per hole and 5 valves. And we'll go from above ground controllers that have a single wire for 48 stations going from the controller to every sprinkler head, thousands and thousands of feet of wire, to one wire going around the entire golf course. So reducing our footprint in a large way, and at the same time becoming more efficient. Pretty pictures. Top left is the soil sensors that we're looking forward to putting on our mowers. Again, super cool, techie. They magnetize to the top of the mower. They're talking to satellites in space, and they're measuring our soil moisture as we mow. Couldn't think of a more efficient way to do it. We've talked, there's companies out there that are flying drones over golf courses in agriculture on a daily basis, measuring soil moisture. In the ground soil moistures, handheld moisture meters. This by far and away is, to me, the most efficient way to measure soil moisture. And I think we're going to get really good at being efficient, even better with our water. Upper right-hand corner for those Star Wars fans is the R2G2 air injection machine. That machine will run on our greens every 4 weeks or so during the season. There's 3 12-inch probes that go 12 inches deep into the ground every 5 or 6 feet, and they blast air throughout the soil profile at 6 inches and 12 inches, creating micropores for air and water and roots and microbes to kind of find that happy coexistence that we really like. Our wash water system on the bottom right, and then the organic fertilizer going out there with Old Glory on the bottom left. So lots of cool stuff. And I wanted to finish with just a little sort of snippet from the golf industry in general. It's an industry I'm very proud of and proud to be a part of. And this is a kind of a macro look at Arizona golf and what we give back to the community in Arizona. I think we can take a little snippet for Flagstaff and kind of condense that. Obviously, this is heavily weighted towards Scottsdale and Phoenix, but 10 million rounds of golf played, over 50,000 jobs created by the golf industry, 4.6 billion with a B in total wages or economic activity, 1.7 billion with wages, and close to 400 million in state tax revenue. These figures are a little bit old. COVID has been good for golf. These figures I think are 3 or 4 years old, and I read last night that the total is now over 6 billion in economic activity and over 500 million in taxes. The one figure that is not here for the state of Arizona that should have been is the fact that golf courses use 2% or less on a daily basis of all the water used in the state. And to provide that sort of return to our communities and the recreation to our members and guests and that sort of thing, and the environmental sort of sanctuary that each of our golf courses are is I think is a really good story, and is a story that's not told enough. That's all I have. I want to thank everybody, the committee, for having us, and I want to thank Pine Canyon for helping represent. I want to thank my team. Without these guys and gals, our sort of our plans, our process without buy-in from them, that doesn't happen. I love these people, and it's really neat to be here and in Flagstaff with such a good group of people to work with. So with that, I want to say thank you, Chairman and Commission, and if you have any questions,
Yeah,
please let me know.
Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I thought I heard you say that you're taking 10 acres of turf um, off the course.
Correct.
But I don't recall if you mentioned what the total acreage was
Yeah.
under irrigated turf.
Sure. Currently, total acreage is 82 out of 150 acres of golf course. So we'll be down to 72 acres, at the end of the season this year.
The other question I had was how much surface area of the golf course,
Mhm.
if you happen to know this, is composed of open water hazards,
Sure,
artificial streams in the nature.
Yeah, so great question. That we have just over 9 acres of ponds, streams, creeks, and water features. And one of the really neat things about the way that the system was engineered 20 years ago when the course was built is that virtually all of those systems are connected. And that we have a series of pumps that help to create some of the features. But our irrigation pond is set at an elevation that when we do have rain, we do have monsoons, we're able to draw down our ponds a little bit and capture some of that rainwater because the lower ponds will fill up. As they fill up, we're able to pump them up to the upper ponds so they can kind of trickle down to our irrigation pond. So when we have leaks and little mishaps, a lot of that will end up through drainage into one of those ponds and be returned to the golf course.
Thank you. Last question. I don't really know how Pine Canyon is set up since I haven't been out there
Mhm.
to play myself, but I'm kind of curious to know whether or not you've seen a significant difference in the amount of wildlife that were in that area
Mhm.
prior to construction versus how the community, how the facility
Sure.
is set up today. And I'm wondering in particular, because I know it's an issue at other golf courses, around the state and in the West, if
Mhm.
there's a concern about the large animals, deer, elk, and things of that nature,
Sure.
damaging the course.
Well, yeah, for myself, there's a great concern of the large animals, but at the same time, we're coexisting. I can't really speak to, what was taking place prior to Pine Canyon being built. It's my second year in town and in the area. So, what I will say is that we do everything we can to promote a healthy ecosystem for all wildlife. And this is not relevant to Pine Canyon, but it is relevant to golf in general. The last property I was at was in the Oakland Hills near California, Berkeley, and surrounded by urban Oakland, small property of 100 acres. We had wild turkey, deer, fox, 160 different species of birds at any given time. It was it was a boon for wildlife. Um, the club at Pine Canyon is very similar. But I can't really speak to, how it was prior.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
I can say most mornings, there's no lack of elk poop.
Yeah. There is a lot of elk traffic, and again, the golfing membership and the superintendent in me, sometimes I'm kicking dirt after the elk run through a couple greens in the morning, and the staff, it's hard on the staff, but we deal with it and we fix it and we move on, and at the end of the day, it is just grass, despite what a lot of our members would say and like to hear, it's just grass. So it'll be okay.
Good job.
Great presentation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I was just curious, you have two different projects where you're saving, I think your sprinkler system redesign is 25 to 30% or 35%?
More efficient than the current.
More efficient.
Correct, right,
And
correct.
then you have your lawnmowers where you're going to
Yeah.
save another 25%? Does that mean you're saving 50%?
No,
all
I
told?
don't, so I think that that's ambitious. I would love to say yes. But what I will say is the 25 to 35% efficiency increase with the new irrigation system, really, it doesn't relate directly to savings, but it's not that far off. Our current irrigation system, the distribution uniformity, which is how we kind of measure our efficiency relative to rainfall. Rainfall is 100% distribution uniformity. It's perfect. Our irrigation systems are not. Best irrigation system is close to 80% efficient. Our current irrigation system is closer to 55 after years of wear and tear. The moisture meter technology is going to help us save 25% of our resource when it comes to electricity, water, and manpower that it takes to properly maintain the system and adjust the system and apply the water efficiently. You know, that I think given it's very weather dependent, everything, our lives are weather dependent, especially doing what I do. I look back at the historical data on how much water was used each year, and you can pick out the drought years just as easy as it gets. The last couple of years, we've used around 60 million gallons. I think maybe just less. And there's some years there that it was double that. So it's going to be highly relative to the weather and what we have going on.
So I guess my question is, do you anticipate, what kind of anticipation of total water usage improvement in terms of, is it going to be a 25% decrease overall or what?
Oh, I think 25% is a very realistic number to anticipate. Yeah.
Well, you're to be commended for doing that.
Thank you. We're going to save as much as we can. I'll tell you that.
One more question. I'm
Sure.
curious. There, besides Pine Canyon, there are a number of other golf courses in and adjacent to the community of Flagstaff.
Sure.
And I'm wondering if it's ever come up, or have you ever considered comparing water use statistics between the different courses and relating that to management practices as
Sure.
to whether or not there's an improvement or a decrease or an increase?
Yeah, that's a great question again. And it's something, I've reached out to each one of the clubs and the superintendents, and we have a really good working sort of relationship. I haven't really drilled down on how much water they're using, but it's certainly worth looking into. In general, big picture, golf course superintendents, directors of agronomy, it's a pretty small group, and we know each other, and we talk a lot about what goes on in our world. And I would say without hesitation that we're some of the best users of water anywhere. So I would promise you they're not overwatering, because they're going to manage that resource the best they possibly can.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, Josh, just some knowledge for the team here.
Yeah.
What courses in Flagstaff are using reclaimed water as we are?
Yeah.
Fluent water, and then what courses are using well water?
So the courses at Aspen and Continental are both reclaimed water users. It's my understanding that both Flagstaff Ranch and Forest Highlands are not, that they are on their own well systems. That's my understanding.
Just at a follow-up on conservation.
Yeah.
Do you think you get more bang for your buck with turf reduction or with your modification of your sprinkler system? And I'm just curious, I mentioned there's a lot of work in choosing varieties of grass that are more efficient in using water. Can you comment on that too?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, bang for your buck environmentally or conservation, from a conservation standpoint, taking turf out that's the deal. We're mowing less, we're fertilizing less, we're spraying less, there's less, just everything is lessened. That goes into, obviously the irrigation system and the reduction there, from the water standpoint and just the overall footprint. Repeat to me the second part of that.
Well, I know
Please.
there's been some work done on the types of turf you're
Oh,
using,
yeah.
the type of grasses, and some are more efficient with water use, and I don't know how it affects play, but
For sure, yeah. No, the grasses that were around 20 years ago are not being used anymore, because some of these university turf programs have really, we've identified better, stronger, more resilient turfs. And it's something we're doing currently with our greens and with our fairways and rough, really with the whole golf courses, where every time, we are interseeding, or every time we poke holes, we are putting down a much more resistant, a turf that's much more resistant to drought and stress and disease in general. Um, that takes time. Those grasses will slowly win the battle of, the strongest will survive kind of thing. That's going to take some time, but that's a part of the whole system. But in general, if it was a newer golf course, we would be using completely different grasses. Maybe same cultivars, but different varieties of those cultivars.
do you know if other golf courses in the vicinity are doing that also?
Oh, I'm sure they are. I know, just so the environment we're in, especially after a winter like this, in about 6 weeks, we're going to see lots of dead grass. And that's something it's going to take me, after being in California for 20 years. We're growing grass 365 days a year. It's going to take me some time to come to grips that I'm going to be looking at dead grass every spring. So we're going to be seeding, to a degree, to a pretty high degree every spring. And that gives us an opportunity to increase our populations and hopefully seed less dead grass each spring. But every time we do things like run one of those aerators and poke holes, anytime we can get a little bit more seed out into the ground, whether we're filling a divot or doing a little turf rehab, we're going to be interseeding those stronger varieties. And I promise you, every superintendent's doing the same thing, or they should be. And they're at the whim of their budgets at the same time. So we all are. Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? Feel free.
I was curious about
Yeah.
your microwave sensor.
Yeah.
How deep does that penetrate into the soil column, and do you pair it with any deeper measurements to get an overall picture?
It goes 4 inches deep, and it's long length microwaves that are much less than your typical microwave at your home. That goes 4 inches deep, every square foot. But we don't typically measure below that depth. Our handheld moisture meters are 3.5-inch probes, and that's kind of that sweet spot for our roots. Yeah, that's the sweet spot for our roots, is that I would say 4 to 7 inches is where we're trying to manage soil moisture.
Just for those online, the question was, how deep do the sensors
Yeah.
probe the ground? It's 4 inches, basically.
Yeah, it's 4 inches every
Yeah.
sure foot.
I mean, this is the
So
beginning of
yeah,
IoT.
the comparison I would make, and it is just from an efficiency perspective, would be, the greenskeeper out there with the moisture meter probing every square foot of an acre, 43,560. We're not doing that in a day, and we're able to do that 4 days a week. It's just really cool.
Aaron, if you want to come to the mic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Erin Young, Water Resources and Conservation Manager. For the city, I just want to say that this is really awesome to hear what you're doing on your own. We have grant opportunities, rebate opportunities to try out new irrigation technologies. I'd love to put you in touch with our Water Conservation Program Manager, Tamara Lawless. We try to find people to take part of things exactly like what you're doing, even trying different grasses and such. And we just, when we're looking, folks aren't wanting to receive, but I think you're already doing it and you're super jazzed about it. So it's just great to hear the enthusiasm. Thank you
Yeah, thank you.
for everything you're doing.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you to the team. I just want to say, we had a quick discussion a couple of months ago, based on some public comment, and it's like the efficiency and the leadership from some of our customers is something that we want to highlight, need to highlight, so that people understand that, you know, water conservation and efficient and being a good steward really is a partnership, right? And you all are being just, again, leading up in this area in terms of things you're doing, technology you're deploying, and are a great example to our other commercial and recreational users on how to do it right. So thank you to all of you. And, yeah, I think Miranda will, Councilmember Sweet can echo some of this into the city council as well in terms of, you know, we've got a great set of customers that are taking this very seriously. So
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having us
Yep.
very much.
Yep. Thank you all.
And I just want to say a few words, Kurt, as
Yep,
well.
please do.
Josh, great job. Thank you so much for, taking the reins on this presentation. Josh, as he said, he's only been here for 2 years. Doug Sutter, once again, general manager of the club. I've been here for just over a year. I moved here from the North Shore of Kauai, where we have an abundance of water that you wouldn't believe. Told him that we had one rain episode a few years ago where the golf course received 27 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. And Honolulu, just a mile away from us, received over 48 inches in that same 24-hour period. So I've seen a lot of rain, and with us being in the Southwest, where obviously the drought can come in winter, spring, even sometimes monsoon doesn't give as much as we would hope. We're very happy to have Josh at the helm as our water manager at the course. I think his background coming from California, where obviously water is not only hard to come by, but also extremely expensive, just has given him that stewardship and that sense of conservation to do the right thing. Because it is doing the right thing. Water is such an amazing resource, whether it's reclaimed or not. I think it's amazing that we're able to give that water a second life here at our club at Pine Canyon, to where it doesn't just go to waste and it's a one-time use. I think that's very important. And, we're able to use, once again, that water and just give it more life and literal life. To the question of the team member here about wildlife, they love being on our property because it is such a healthy and abundance of life. With our ospreys that come back year over year, the elk and the deer and all the squirrels and birds that are just enjoying the heck out of our acreage. But, he has, and as the Waterworks group has seen, has reduced our usage just single-handedly on his own. Not to, say anything about previous management, but the philosophy of plant health and then playability and aesthetics being the latter, it was probably the complete reverse of that order, where they were watering to no limit. So I think that, having Josh at the helm and managing our water, just with him, he's reduced it by already 25 or 30%. So with these new tools in place, it's just going to get better and better, and we will continue to be good stewards of the water that the city of Flagstaff does give us. So thank you again for having us out here, and definitely really happy to work with Josh, and Andrew keeps paying the bills for us. So appreciate you doing that. But yeah, honestly, great partnership here. If you ever want to come out and see the property, it'd be great for you to see where we are today before we put in the new system, just so you have kind of a baseline of, what he has to work with now, which is a 20-year-old irrigation system. You can imagine driving a 20-year-old vehicle and then all the new ones on the lot. Obviously, there's been quite a bit of improvements over those couple decades. So we're very happy that the ownership, Cemetery Companies, is putting this investment into the club, giving us the opportunity to do the right thing and having the right guy manage it all. So thank you again for your time.
Thanks, everybody. That's excellent. Okay.
Just talk this up with your fellow golf courses.
Yeah.
Will do. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. Really educational. Okay, so now we're going to move into item 4B, open channel maintenance accomplishments in 2022 with Sharon Masick Lopez. Is it Masick Lopez? Okay, there we go.
That's a tough act to follow, but I'll do what I can. How do I get on here? It was here, and now I don't see it. Oh, there's two PowerPoints. There it is. Okay. So, hello, I'm Sharon Masick Lopez. I'm in the water services in the stormwater section. I'm a project manager senior. and I'm going to be presenting about open channel maintenance in 2022. This is about a 15 to 20-minute presentation. If you could hold your questions till the end, that's appreciated. So in this presentation, we're take a look at 2022 open channel maintenance, which includes vegetation removal, debris removal, dredging, bank stabilization, and then just a really quick look at what we're planning for 2023. The photos on the right in this image are before and after photos at Cheshire Wetlands for a big bunch of work that we did there this year. Pretty dramatic change. This figure is our open channel maintenance dashboard. It's a part of CityWorks. It's a GIS-based data management tool where we can put in work orders and they're describe the work that needs to be done, and then those work orders are closed, and it's our way of tracking all of our on-the-ground efforts. Each year we have an intern from NAU who comes and does the annual inspections. And from that, there's a condition score, 1, 2, and 3 of the priority of addressing various issues. The map in the center there, those little wrench icons, those are closed work orders. So you can see that the work that's done is distributed throughout the city. And the total work cost on here is $61,000 for this year. That primarily reflects our in-house staff, our operators, their time, city equipment, and some rental equipment. There are additional expenditures for contractual work, but most of that in 2022 was charged to the museum fire flooding and the pipeline fire flooding. And then there's this little graph that you can see, this is just total work order numbers, like the percent that were for different work activities. So you can see that dredging was a huge part of what happened this year, this past year. And then all the other elements of trash and debris removal, removing vegetation, general landscaping, erosion control, and weed removal. The pie piece for vegetation removal should relatively be actually larger. It's the way that the system works. Some work orders will be 1 day of 2 guys as one work order, but then you've got a week of a crew of 6 doing work. And so it should be a bigger wedge for the vegetation removal. This is an example of work that our water services operators do. This is on Ponderosa Wash, the map on the left. It's a tributary to Sinclair Wash, which is a tributary to the Rio de Flag. So we do a lot of work on the main stem of the Rio de Flag, but also on the tributaries and the sub-tributaries. You can see in the picture in the center, this was our problem area near Lake Mary Road, where over time sediment had built up and then vegetation took hold in the sediment, and that changes the shape of the channel. You don't have the full cross-sectional area that's available for the flow, and that's a problem. It can raise the water levels, contribute to flooding. So our operators went in with heavy equipment. They dug out the sediment and the vegetation and hauled it away to open that up. And then we have this awesome tool available, which is the mini dozer. It's a robotic dozer that it weighs 5,000 pounds, which is mostly the batteries give it that weight. And it's a really safe and effective way to clean these concrete box culverts. I left my water over here and I need it. Hold on a second. And then Cheshire Wetlands was a big project for us this year. This is the map of the project area. The magenta dash lines, that's the project area. So there's, it's in Cheshire, there's Fremont Boulevard, you can see Cheshire Park, the Futz Trail, the museum is off to the east. And there, you see these little spring symbols near Fremont Boulevard. There's this is an ongoing maintenance challenge in this area because it's a very shallow gradient with from Fremont down to the dam pool. And, and there's water always available, almost always available from those springs. And so sediment tends to fall out because of the shallow gradient. And then the available water means that vegetation grows up, which makes even more sediment fall out. So it can be very challenging to keep this area maintained. So this is what it looked like in 2021 after we had a 3-inch rainfall event in the watershed. You can see there's like some lumber that washed down. There was a lot of woody debris. You can see there's a lot of cattail and willow, and that flood pulse just really couldn't pass through this area because it was jammed up and there was flooding on adjacent private properties. So our operators went out with equipment and they excavated using a track hoe both downstream and upstream of the Futz Trail Bridge. And they had to do this sequentially because it's such a wet area. There's so much sediment and moisture from those springs. It's so saturated that they'd have to dig some and let it drain and come back and dig some and let it drain. And eventually they got it all cleared. So these are before and after shots at Fremont Boulevard. On the left is the upstream side of Fremont, and you can see all of the woody debris that came down with that flood that just jammed up those culverts and made the water overflow on the road and created flooding. So they rented a backhoe with an especially long arm to reach over the edge of the street and down into the channel to dig out a pool to open that up. And the same on the south side of the channel. So on the right side is I always say south, I always get because the road, it's east and west actually, downstream and upstream. So on the downstream side, you can see it's much more open now. There had been a lot of sediment and cattails and envirosystems. After it was all dredged out, they did a treatment with a aquatic safe herbicide to knock those cattails back so they're not coming up so much again. But the end result is you have a nice open channel with a clear channel bottom and lower banks and a well-defined thaw weg for the spring water to transport so that it's not pooling up and we're not having sediment build up again and cattails. And you can see on the downstream side of Fremont, the nice thing about clearing out all that sediment and vegetation is that then when the monsoon rains came, they had greater velocity going through the system, and that really worked to flush sediment out of the culverts. And so that's what we're aiming for always, is the good velocity, good flow to keep a clean system. So let me take a drink. So our operators, they do a lot of work, but we also rely on additional resources. And these are conservation crews, volunteers, and landscaping companies or tree service companies. The photographs on the right, this is the American Conservation Experience. They came out in December of all things. I couldn't believe they came out in December. But they cleared in the Linwood neighborhood from Bolton Cooper up to Highway 180. There was a lot of woody debris, and there's still woody debris in there that needs removal, but and we had willows growing into the channel, obstructing the channel. So they cut out willows and they saved some of those and wrapped them into bundles and installed vertical willow bundles in a cut bank that was eroding, and then also used a mini excavator to excavate in places where it was like really jammed up with debris and sediment to open up the channel to improve the flow. So for our additional resources, these are the focus areas that we had in 2022. You can see they're very heavily weighted towards spruce wash and the Rio de Flag because of the museum fire flooding in 2021 and anticipating that could happen again. And the pipeline fire, post-fire flooding that we experienced quite a lot of because of Schultz Creek. So these are some of our conservation crews. This crew on the left, this is the Ancestral Lands Conservation Crew. They subcontract to the Arizona Conservation Corps. And they're working here on our, our operators identified that the Savannah Way culvert outlet was mostly blocked up and they weren't able to get in there and deal with that. So the conservation crew dealt with it. And there was, you can see a tire in the picture. There was a swing set. There were willows growing up through all this trash and it just created a dam and the sediment built up and built up. So that culvert was 80% plugged. And by getting a hand crew in there, we were able to open that up and get it flowing again. In the bottom right, this is ACE crew that is clearing willows and other woody vegetation near Anderson Street, crossing the Rio de Flag. We really made a strong effort to clear vegetation upstream and downstream of all of the culverts on the Rio, downstream of Schultz Creek, to make sure that those floodwaters could pass well. And there was also an AZCC crew did a bunch of this willow removal upstream of Thorpe Road next to the ball fields. We also have volunteers, and stream stewards is a big chunk of our volunteers that helped this year. The photo in the upper left is the Mount Eldon Middle School Alpine Academy students. They adopted a section of Spruce Wash because we have this Adopt the Rio program through Stream Stewards. They came out the last day of school and worked for an hour and a half and cleaned a bunch of trash and especially woody debris. The buckets and the bags, a lot of that is woody debris that would have been floatable and gotten into our system and could have created problems for the stormwater system. And similarly, upstream of that, AZCC had removed trees that had fallen into the channel in the Paradise neighborhood to make sure that that material didn't float down and end up in our stormwater system. The little flyer on the bottom, that was made by Sonoma Boynton. She's our Stream Stewards Coordinator. She's on a one-year AmeriCorps appointment, and she works out at the Sustainability Office. I meant to mention that Stream Stewards is a collaboration of the Friends of the Rio de Flag, the Sustainability Office of the City of Flagstaff, and Water Services Stormwater Section. On the right side, you see more Stream Stewards volunteers. We've had a number of volunteer events, and here again, they're helping to clear woody vegetation upstream and downstream of those culverts on the Rio de Flag to help reduce flooding incidents. And then our very last event of the year was Make a Difference Day in the fall, and this we had all types of volunteers that helped with doing some finishing work at the Cheshire wetlands. There was a lot of handwork that needed to be done. So here you see in the photo, they're shaping a bank. It was all chunky and ugly looking and not a very stable slope. So they smoothed out that bank and made it a good slope, seeded it with native vegetation and mulched it. So hopefully in the spring we'll have some nice vegetation that'll come up on that bank and stabilize it. And then under the Futz Trail Bridge, there was this hardened mass of sediment and cattails and other organic matter that the heavy equipment didn't have a way to reach in there and just grab that and scoop it out. So they went in with picks and shovels and wheelbarrows and tore that thing apart and took it away. So now there's a good clear profile underneath the bridge to allow water to pass through. And then the happy group on the right stayed for pizza. There was about twice as many people in the morning, but these ones stayed for pizza, and we did some more vegetation removal upstream. That was a fun day. And then last of all, we hired Cutright Forestry, a local tree service company here in town, to deal with some of the more technical woody vegetation removal, where there's, it's closer to homes or power lines or it's bigger trees, and you just can't really do that with a conservation crew. So on the left is a photo of on the south side near LaRue, where you can see the store in LaRue in the background. But it was just full of Siberian elms. And they cleared that out, and you can see it's so much better now. And it's also a safety issue because you can see better at that intersection now where that stop sign is without the vegetation there. And then on the right is upstream of Birch. There was 2 blocks from Birch up to Cherry, up to Sitgreaves. They cleared on the channel bottom and on the lower banks, they cleared mostly Siberian elm, a few other woody species. But, and we did this work in October because in October, when the trees are, the leaves are changing color, they're pulling their sugars down into their roots. So we were able to do a more effective cut stump treatment where shortly after they cut the tree, they very specifically on the stump paint it with aquatic approved herbicide that then gets drawn down into those roots along with those sugars, and it helps to kill the roots of those plants so that it's less of a battle in the following year and the year after with those trees. So looking forward to this year, because we had a lot of focus on spruce wash and the Rio de Flag this year, that this year's work, I mean 2022's work is shown in red, and in purple is 2023's plan. And so we're going to be doing a lot more work in the tributaries. There are select places along the Rio that we'll also still be working. And here again, it'll be our operators, volunteers, probably a tree service contractor, and we'll have conservation crews if they're in the area. If we're lucky enough not to have flooding and they aren't in the area, then we might not have them. But if they show up for that, then we'll also get them involved with open channel maintenance. Do you have any questions?
First off, thank you for that update. This has been a couple of years of, well, more than that, of a lot of work in terms of an impact from rain flooding and all that through the system. So keeping the system operating is critical for the city. But any questions from commissioners?
I'll just say a big thank you. I live in Coconino Estates, and in 2021, I watched the water almost crest the bridge there at Anderson.
Yeah.
And then clearing, I actually personally asked to have stuff cleared at that same bridge. And you came in, your crew came in and really cleared that out nicely before we started having the flood events in Coconino Estates. So I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. I was very happy to do that. I wanted to mention also about Anderson. I just started working for the city a little over a year ago, and everything was like Team Flagstaff, Team Flagstaff. It's like, it's true. It's not just a slogan. It's a real thing, because I went to do reconnaissance at Anderson to bring a crew in there, and I bumped into a resident who's actually a retired city worker, city streets worker, and he's like, hey, you need to fix these catch basins because there's geotextile fabric in them and they can't drain. It's because they were doing the project there on Navajo. And so I went back to the office and talked to Chris Palmer, who inspects he knows all the construction guys because he inspects for them. He told them about it. They went out and removed that geotextile fabric. And when the big water came down Navajo and then it went to Anderson, it could go down through those catch basins and get back into the Rio because of this whole team effort. So, yeah. I was really happy about that.
Just wanted to also say thank you for the presentation. I am really looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing in the Fox Glen area in the future.
Yeah, the primary focus this year, and I'm open to ideas and suggestions, but there's a lot of bare ground there. There's a lot of invasive plants. It's been a sort of a perpetual thing there. I remember, pulling invasives and planting native plants years ago, many years ago in that area. So we're going to do some more
The other
of that
unique
with
thing about
volunteers.
that reach of the Rio de Flag is the base of the channel is above the park.
What are you saying?
The base of the channel of the Rio
Oh.
de Flag is actually above the park, the base elevation of the park.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah.
So
We should talk.
I got a couple quick questions. So you had the dashboard up, which really sort of
Mhm.
captures the work for the, now FEMA's part of this. Do we have reporting requirements back to FEMA and or certain obligations to make sure that we're meeting all certifications there? Or how does that come into play?
Yes, and I probably should have mentioned that. So we're
No, it's
part of,
okay.
we're part of the community rating system.
Right.
And there are several different elements that, of what we do with, open channel maintenance that tie in with the community rating system so that we can, get a, maintain, we have a rating of 5, which is about as good as it gets in Arizona. There's one that has a 4. It's like golf, the lower score is better. But yeah, so we've been able to maintain that 5 rating, which allows residents of the city of Flagstaff who buy flood insurance to
Right.
get a 25% discount.
That's excellent. What's your estimate? There's a lot of volunteer work going on. What's your rough estimate, like labor department versus volunteers? Like 20, 80,
Oh,
20,
so-
50, 50? What do you think? Because that's pretty
No,
amazing.
The lion's share of the work is done by our water operators. I
Okay.
mean, they're out there and they're not just taking care of open channels, they're taking care of the closed channels. And there's some labor swapping that goes on between, uh, uh, I'm blanking on it, the wastewater and the stormwater. They help each other out. But yeah, so at least half of the overall work or more is done by the water operators.
Yeah.
And then, this past year, a lot was done by conservation crews because they were in the area and we really took advantage of that. So I couldn't really give you a ballpark estimate, 5%, 10%, I don't know, maybe is volunteer work.
That's still pretty great. I noticed the Works Department had a contest to name the new snowplow. I think we all need to have a contest to name the mini dozer.
Oh, yeah. we
Dozer
should.
McDozer face or something. Yeah. That's pretty neat technology. So,
Yeah.
well, any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're moving into old business, which there is none. And then into item 6, informational items to and from the chair. I know we're going to have some updates or discussion around the stormwater rate discussion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. If it pleases the chair and the commission, we do have staff available to provide some process updates, one on the stormwater rate, where that's at, and also on the rate study for water, wastewater, and reclamation.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So I think we'll start with Ed, who will provide an update of where we're at in the process with the stormwater rate increase. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just go back on the last item real quick. Not council member, sorry, Commissioner Bills. There is a reason why the Rio is above Fox Glen Park. I don't know if you know that is a detention basin or was designed as one for that back end of the soccer field. Yep. Yeah, yeah, you can still see some of the foundations there. Sorry, a little aside there quickly. Just here very briefly to give you a visual, or not visual, a verbal update on stormwater rates. Obviously, I was here a month ago when we presented those 3 scenarios, the revised ones, scenario 1, 2, and 3. So we did come back to council this Tuesday with a revision again, and we're calling it scenario 1, 2, and 3, the B series, 1B, 2B, 3B. So it does get a little confusing. And really the big difference between what we presented on Tuesday and what we presented back in January was taking into account some potential external funds, both through the state surplus. So there's 2 House bills to help fund stormwater here in the city. One that was proposed through the Metro Plan, and Flagstaff Metropolitan Planning Group for $3 million for the Highway 180 culvert. That's still in the early stages, that House bill. And the other was an amendment to an existing Navajo County House bill that the Chamber of Commerce, their lobbyist, was able to squeeze in there, if you will. And that was for $8.9 million again, for the Highway 180 culvert, as well as for detention basin maintenance. So that is still also working through the process. So both relatively early in the process, but we are hopeful, and we do have a new lobbyist here at the city to help move that forward. Definitely some great news if it gets adopted this summer. With that in mind, we kind of wrapped our heads around of, how does this affect rates? And one potential that we looked at was to have the general fund as a backstop to see if we can move forward with a rate decision. So essentially these B series, if you want to call them that, was assuming that $9 million of what we were showing back in January would be accounted for either through the general fund or through state surplus funding. So that was with that, we're able to reduce our rates quite a bit, which I think it was a good thing to show for the community as well as to city management and the council. So council did decide to take on this first read of the ordinance, take a decision, and they picked scenario 3B. Under that scenario, we'd have a 12% increase in stormwater rate effective April 1st, and then 12% until the end, which is 2028, which is when we'll reevaluate rates. So it is quite a bit lower than what we showed in January, and quite a bit lower than what we showed in November as well, which I think is a big win, if you will, for the community. Under that scenario, as I mentioned, $9 million will be externally funding operations and maintenance. We still will have quite a bit of increase in operations and maintenance under this, which is good. So we'll be able to hit the flood mitigation needs that we have, the sandbags, the barriers, the engineering assessments, the community meetings. So we will be ramping those up. Also, flood response will have a pretty healthy fund for the flood response aspect. So that's the streets cleanup, the smaller, pipe cleanups, Sharon's talking about some of the open channel work. So a lot of that will be funded through this rate. And then on the capital side, under scenario 3B, we have the assumption that we have a few grant funded projects. That would be that Killip Inlet, the north downtown lateral for also known as Santa Fe lateral. That will be grant funded. Those will both be funded through the Army Corps 545 program, also known as the Environmental Infrastructure Program. We will have a grant as well for lower spruce wash resiliency, so improving the channel down near Fox Glen, actually, in the spruce wash, Schweitzer Canyon wash area. We're still waiting on that agreement. That was awarded back in 2019. There's been a lot of back and forth with FEMA on it, unfortunately, but that would be grant funded. And then the majority of the next 5 years would be rate funded for capital. And that's in a way that gives us some flexibility. So if we do get grants in and we are actively searching for those grants, we will be able to adjust as we need in the future. But it gives us the flexibility that if we do not get those grants, or more likely if we do get them, but there's a long wait period to see the funding come through, that we can still move forward with the projects. And with that, sorry, I don't want to take too much time. Happy to answer questions if you have any.
Any questions, Fred? Good, John.
I'll just that, but for personal curiosity, so the 180 Schultz Creek culvert project, does that have a starting date or?
A great question. It's one we get almost daily. No, we will be getting our 30% designs back this Friday, so tomorrow, from our designer. As soon as we get those designs back, we review them at the city. We're fast tracking that, but we also need to have ADOT review them as well as the county. So all three jurisdictions will be reviewing those. Also, since we have quite a bit of backlog with our real estate group, with the number of projects that are going on in the city, we required our designer to give us the legal descriptions so they can move forward with property acquisitions. Usually we wait until 60% or 90% design, but since we know that might be a bottleneck, we are pushing that forward right now. So they definitely were out there surveying in the snow. Poor souls, potholing out there to get the information we need for those legal descriptions. So a short answer, there isn't a short answer. The longer answer is we're working as quickly as we can. We do have an expectation to get those 30% back to the designer within 2 weeks, which is a pretty quick turnaround for 3 jurisdictions. And then we'll move very quickly to 60, 90. Probably at the 60, 90 point, we'll be looking at construction. We have reached out to our capital team here at the city, and luckily they do have a little bit of capacity to take this on starting in April. So we will have either Mac McNamara or Eli Reisner, I'm not sure which one yet, coming on as project manager for it. And that's a real big win because they can move this a lot faster once we have a dedicated project manager for 180. We are hoping to move this quickly. With that said, it is a complex project.
So just a couple points. First, I'd like to thank you and the department on coming forth with the original, but then quickly coming back and putting together some excellent options that were much more nuanced, because I think it helped the city council and the rest of us sort of think through what are the real priorities here. And I think the second thing is, your personal leadership, I think, was outstanding. I've watched a few meetings that were not necessarily friendly, and you conducted yourself so professionally and so excellently. I was just like really proud to be not part, but attached to the water department. I'm like, this is great. So thank you. It was really impressive. So
Thank you, much appreciated. Hopefully we'll get some great things done in the next few years, hopefully sooner.
Shannon, next one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we also want to provide an update on the rate study for water, wastewater, and reclamation. Again, these studies are great, really they're best business practices. It is always important to take that inward look, to look at data through multiple lenses, and to check assumptions. And you do that periodically, set by policy by the governing body. I would say the utilities is required to do a rate study every 3 years to make sure that those aligns with the values of the community, with direction of governing body, and with, again, best practices for maintaining water services and their financial stability. So I do have with me Aaron, who I'd like to turn it over to provide an update of where we're at in that process and what that looks like going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jones. As you are aware, we went through a procurement process to select a consultant that we do have a contract ready to bring to City Council. However, it's been quite a long time since the council has been briefed on the need for the rate study. Therefore, we are providing a short presentation at Tuesday's meeting on the 21st, just to introduce this topic to them, introduce kind of a brief scope of work, as well as the work that we completed a year ago, solidifying the direction we received from a previous city council, that we vetted that direction, all those talking points through you all to solidify them into the contract, that we wanted to make sure that expertise was among the selected consultant to deal with, those topics. So suggesting different rate structures, how we want to price water to maybe achieve some different objectives in the city, where we draw the line between wastewater treatment and reclaimed water sales, if you will. So all of this will be presented sort of generally to City Council on Tuesday, just as a discussion item.
And for them to get their head wrapped, because they've got to vote for the procurement of the study, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
so
okay.
at a subsequent, we'll come back with that contract at
Right.
another meeting.
Right.
Hopefully soon after Tuesday's meeting.
Yeah, I heard procurement's backed up. They've got just a couple of people. So, yeah, okay. Any questions from commissioners?
Only one, is the timing on this going to put pressure on the accomplishment of what we're trying to get done this year? Yes, because you're waiting for their approval, right? So, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're a little behind our policy of doing these studies every 3 years. The last one was completed in 2016. So at this point, what's another couple months? It's great to have our new director on board so he can have his fingerprints on this process, one that he's very familiar with his other utilities. So yeah, so I don't see the delay really impacting anything significant that comes to mind.
And I think just to add, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, yeah, I agree. All right, a couple, a couple months setback, but our ability to really step back and take that look on, again, it's important for us to look at our plans, to update plans, our financial plan, master plans. Again, this is just, again, best practices in a business. I think, so looking at a rate structure and just crunching data, again, would allow us to go forward and meet the best business practice. But really looking at the scope of what's, there was, again, policy direction that came about, taking a little deeper dive look. So I think it's important to come back before the governing body and retouch on those points. And also the points for the public engagement and how that's messaged, how that's communicated. Again, there's a little bit of a nuance than just executing a contract for accountants to crunch numbers of water use and revenues. So there's a little bit of, I'd say, kind of above and beyond, really taking a deeper dive and understanding not just the policies, but again, the values of the community. So being able to come before the governing body and have that discussion and again, lay a foundation that this is a little bit more than just a data crunch, that there's multiple layers to this that are done intentionally. And so again, we think it was in fairness to come back and have that work session before just bringing a legal contract or agreement forth to conduct a study. And so having the opportunity to do that, it helps us to really frame our messaging and have confidence going forward. And also, I think gives the governing body the ability to make a more informed decision, having some basic information on what it is we're trying to accomplish and what's got us to where we're at today.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think to your point about public engagement, I think we learned a couple good things going through the stormwater about, trying to bring some people in and take that input and help them understand what the priorities are, but the philosophies, and then listen, right? So that was a big success, I think, that, and the entire team did through that process. So, great.
I'm just curious, it's been long enough now that it would be nice to get a list of the goals and the criteria for the rate study, maybe for the commission. It's what it's worth, so maybe we might have some good input on that also. I don't know what's the procedure for this to happen?
Well, a year ago, we did go through this, and in Marion's minute, she had that document. It came to the Water Commission, I think we had 3 presentations on it, 2 or 3. Happy to email that back out. Our scope of work, I'm glad you mentioned outreach, that we knew going into it that outreach is almost the most important component of it. Working with the Water Commission and City Council, perhaps a work group, and then community outreach. So this is the scope of work is encompassing that. There will be opportunities, I think, embedded in this contract to we're going to discuss those items in detail that were included. We want to make sure that we have the discussions we need to in order to not sort of derail the process later. It's really important to establish, all of this up front. So there'll be opportunities. Yeah.
So John, maybe a friendly amendment, but maybe, I don't know if we can get a preview of what you're going to walk the city council through. That might be a little bit more insightful than the stuff we saw a year ago, because I'm sure it's evolved. So if that's allowable, I don't know, or if you're ready, but yeah, if you want to send that out to us, we'd love to take a look at it, just so we know. But your call.
We do have a PowerPoint that is attached to the agenda for next week. It should go out tomorrow, I believe, from the city clerk, so we can pull that and send it to you, so you don't have to look it up. So you can see it in
That'd be
advance. This all happened fairly quickly, and we didn't have enough time to necessarily add it to tonight's agenda.
No problem.
So
No problem. Thank you.
So for next month, I have some agenda items together. And for March 16th meeting, so we have the flood update and also an update on the water awareness for April and an update on the funded and unfunded capital projects from Gary. That's what we have so far.
All right, thank you, Mary. Anybody have any questions or other points they want to raise? I think, John, you have one question, yep?
I have something. I just got out of a meeting before this one with Aaron and other folks. And that was, we're working on some grants to do some good things. But lo and behold, the one person I wanted to talk to, I've been kind of badgering folk about how we manage the national forest north of the city on the peaks to prevent a catastrophic fire on the rest of the south side of the peaks, which would be devastating to the city of Flagstaff. And I talked to Nick Musseltoe, who I guess is the second in command of Coconino National Forest or something along that. I'm not sure what is a district ranger. Okay. Deputy district ranger. Anyway, he handles all the dirty work, I guess, in terms of, but he would be very happy. And matter of fact, he would like to come and address and have a discussion with the Water Commission and how we can change the use rules to prevent a wildfire on the south side of the peaks, which we've already got a taste of it with the tunnel fire. We don't want a bigger taste and get that going before the fire season. So I don't know if we can arrange it for the March meeting or not, but it would be a good idea maybe. So.
Yeah, and I don't, Dr. Jones, in terms of trying to reshape that, would it be good to have department personnel give some input on specific areas, given the knowledge of the, I'll say topography, or the, I'm not sure the right word, but where there be the most impact, I guess. You know what I mean? Or is it just all going to be majorly bad? Or are there specific areas that have
Any
more-
steep terrain in the real watershed, it puts us at risk if it burns and burns severely. And there was a story in the Daily Sun about 4 or 5 years ago that if we say we burn the entire side of the south side of the peaks severely, that we would have a flow the size of the Colorado River going through the Rio, which would not be good. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to be, I'd like us all to be proactive about and change the use. You know, they already have no campfires in that area. So it's basically the whole watershed that comes off the south side of the peaks or any steep terrain, but maybe mainly the south side of the peaks. I don't know, Don, you might have some ideas about that too. I don't know. But.
So John, after this meeting, we can talk and work with Marion to see if we can get this gentleman to the meeting, and if there's some thoughts the department has that we want to communicate first, or the city council or anybody, we can load him up, preload him with some input to maybe have a discussion in March.
This could make your guys' job a little bit easier, I'm hoping.
Okay, great.
One of the things I wanted to ask Nick Musto about when he was there, but I'm going to wait for another time, is, you know, the 3-inch rain event that came in 2021 and all that flooding that happened in Cheshire, that was coming off of thin forest. And so we have to be really careful. We need to talk with the Forest Service about more carefully doing these thinning projects with watershed in mind, because you can have aggravated flow from the thinning as well. So.
That could be part of the discussion. I had the same thoughts exactly.
Any other topics?
This is Ben. I have my hand up. You probably didn't see it.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ben. I did not see it. So go ahead.
No worries. I never see the hand up on the computer either. So I feel it's my responsibility to remind whenever these subjects come up that most of the we're dealing with two facts which make our life really hard on this point, and we should bring these up anytime we have a meeting about it. So first fact is that forest thinning and restoration is not happening fast enough, and is, unless it's done dramatically better and dramatically faster, the forest is going to burn in a catastrophic fashion. The second fact is that we experience a lot more lightning caused forest fires than we do human caused forest fires in northern Arizona, which means that even if people fix their behavior perfectly, it's not going to solve the problem. So we need to contextualize our discussions around those two facts, because I think that that's an important reality check that needs to inform what we talk about. Over.
Yep. Thanks, Ben. Totally agree. That's, I think we can do what we can do, but at the same point, realize that there's other factors at play. So,
We can't do anything about dry lightning in June, so.
all right. Any other points?
Yeah, I've got a couple of brief things to bring to the attention of the commission and others in the room. One is a follow-up with one of the items that I brought forward last month. It has to do with proposed legislation, specifically the local groundwater stewardship areas legislation. They were actually submitted as two separate bills, a Senate bill and a House bill. Both of them died in committee. They never even got a hearing. The ad hoc group that's been working on that legislation with a couple of legislatures is kind of going back and rewording and going to try and resubmit one or both of those bills again before June. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that the Arizona Hydrological Society is having its annual symposium in Flagstaff this year, September 13th through the 16th. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention, ArizonaHydrologicalSociety.org. All the information about the symposium is there. And it's looking like there's not an actual theme for the symposium, but it's looking like a lot of the interest in terms of technical sessions is going to be focused on, or potentially might be focused on, rural groundwater issues in the state of Arizona. So, mark that on your calendars possibly.
Thank you so much. Okay. Anything else? Once, twice, 3 times? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So that's going to close out section 6. We'll move to adjourn at 5:35. And thank you all for great work and presentations, and especially on the stormwater, and Aaron on the rate study, pushing that forward. And also thank you to council member Sweet for helping shepherd the storm through the rapids, I'll say. And once again, welcome to Shannon. So thank you all.